Today I have my two housemates, Sion and Tash. They own and operate CrossFit Athletic in Vale, RooGrips, which is a grip for mainly for CrossFitters, but people that do pull-ups or any high volume grip work. They have a ski lodge in Japan, and they've got a dog in the background if you're watching the video, which is Sasha. She's sleeping. Sion and Tash, welcome on the show.
Oh, thanks for having us, Kimbo.
Yeah. This is interesting.
Yes, it's a slightly different format today. I've pre-planned a little bit more than what I usually do with these episodes, meaning each of us have one question they're going to ask the other two, and they also have to answer themselves. So there'll be three answers for each question.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Oh, you have to think about your own answers for all three.
Yeah, so you have to answer your own question.
He's pretty good on the spot anyway, so he'll be fine.
Right, okay.
Sion made fun of Tash for ages that she didn't understand the format of this, and now he's just realizing it himself. It's not a strict format. It'll be pretty loose, but we all have a question each, and then we're going to kind of go the rounds, because one of the favorite parts about doing the podcasts so far for me has been listening to all the stories of the guests that I've had on. So are you guys prepared?
Well, no. No, I'm not. I thought I was, but no, obviously not. But yes, I'm ready to go.
Okay, I will start this podcast slightly different. So
Okay.
I'll jump this on you. Just give everyone all of my, I think we're hitting 100 listeners now.
Oh, wow.
Which is kind of crazy,
wow,
right?
that's pretty
Triple
cool.
figures.
Yes.
Happy days.
Yes,
Yeah.
more than 42. I was at 42 for a while. And some of them might not know you, so I will leave it up to you to give yourself a short introduction to who you are, because all I did really was just tell everyone what you guys did for work, which is kind of a boring answer. But yeah, Sion, do you want to start?
Yeah, well, I suppose I'm a personal trainer, really, by trade. Like, I've done nothing else since I've left school other than training. And then fell in love with sort of business, and then Tash and I have started going off in different business adventures. Used to be a squash player, gave that up. Now I'm a full-time golfer. Absolutely love my golf. But that sort of wraps me up.
Actually, I have one quick question that I've been wanting to ask about squash.
Oh, yeah. Go for it.
What's the similarities between a squash player and a CrossFitter, if there's any?
Is this a joke?
No?
Oh, no, zero.
Zero?
Zero. I couldn't even think of one that's...
Polar opposites.
Yeah, they are. They're opposite ends of the spectrum. They don't help each other at all. A good example of this is CJ Walker.
Yeah.
Incredible CrossFitter, and he can kind of play squash. But if you see him on a squash court, it does not fit one bit.
He's way too thick. He has to walk sideways to get in through the glass door.
That's right, yeah.
They're
There's no
super
similarities.
Slim, agile people.
Yeah, and they have to move
Squash
laterally.
players.
And tend
all
to
the
be,
time.
and tend to be like really introverted too, squash players. Like, they're typically your CrossFitters really extroverted and like out there and big personalities. You don't get that at a squash tournament. Not much talking and joking around. And
What is it like in the warm-up area of a squash tournament?
oh,
Is there a warm-up area?
Nah, it's like I was saying, it's really, everyone just sticks to themselves. Lots of headphones, lots of jumping around, not much talking, no joking. It's really boring. Very, very boring. That's my experience anyway.
That's good.
my experience. Maybe some squash players out there will hate me saying that.
All right, Tash, your turn.
So I'm a personal trainer as well. So I coach at Vale at the athletic gym. Also the marketing manager for RooGrips. Yep, pretty much the manager of RooGrips. So I pretty much run how RooGrips goes through day to day and take care of all that with the help of Sion. And then also a nutrition coach as of recent, which is really exciting and something that I've just developed a passion in as well. Well, over the years that I was competing, is when that passion actually really grew. But then when you start learning about it and delve deeper, it's just unreal. Like it's like you just like touch a little bit of like water on the shallow end, and then all of a sudden there's just like this ocean.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh god.
You've just done your precision nutrition course,
Yeah.
correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will also add that Tash has competed as an individual at regionals
Yeah.
and as a team member at the games.
Yes. Yes.
There's quite a few listeners that do CrossFit.
4 years ago at the games now.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Time
that
flies.
feels like last year.
It does. When I see photos come up, it's crazy. I'm just like, I still remember the feelings, the emotions, the hotel.
What,
I still remember everything.
Why the hotel?
Because the American hotels are weird. Do you not notice that?
Did you get
They're a bit old school. Like they have that old kind of like thick, like Arabian carpets and stuff happening.
That's maybe just the hotel you stayed in. I
Yeah,
can't
remember the
that.
one that we stayed in? It was just like El Cheapo, but
So how long's it been since you've been in the games then?
Oh, that is ages ago. Yeah, I'm sure you love to ask this question because I'll show my age now. But I went in 2012, which is 7 years ago.
wow.
That's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
We didn't stay at a hotel.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to the
Yeah.
game. Oh, never
Where'd
mind.
you stay? If you were in a
We
hotel?
stayed in a house or
Okay,
a kind of a townhouse.
Yeah.
in,
So you just like rented like an Airbnb type thing?
Yes. I don't even know if Airbnb,
Airbnb wasn't
existed.
around.
No,
back then.
it was like stays
Yeah.
or something like that. Would have
Yeah,
been
we
there,
had
wasn't
all
it?
the boys, so me, Wall, and Poods
Mm.
in one house, and then all the girls, which was Rachel, Philly, and Kaz in one house. So boys together, girls together. And it was sick. It wasn't at Huntington Beach. It was at I think it was
Hermosa?
close to there.
Hermosa?
Maybe Hermosa.
Yeah, I
Yes,
think it's
yeah,
Hermosa.
yeah. It was epic.
Yeah.
I'd love to go back and do that. Not compete,
So-
but
so
go back and
thought you
go
were
back
coming
and
out of
stay there
retirement
again.
there,
Yeah.
Kimbo.
Yeah. No, definitely not. No.
Just
Not go back and
reminiscing.
compete. But that's the downs. I loved Madison, but having it in LA and being able to stay at the beach, that was sick.
Oh,
Yeah.
it was, LA was, even just having the open tennis stadium for all the finals and stuff and just sitting in the sun all
Sitting in
day.
the sun.
Oh, it just made an atmosphere.
Way better atmosphere
Yeah.
there than it was at
Madison.
Madison.
Madison. Yeah.
But I will argue that the atmosphere outside of the games was better in Madison,
Madison.
because it's such a
100%.
small place.
You're so
100%.
close to the town
Mm,
square
yeah.
and everyone's limited to eating and staying there, so you
Yeah.
have the
Yeah.
whole vibe.
Remember how scary it was when you leave Carson? You'd like
Yeah.
walk out of Carson, you're like,
You like run to the
Like, drive straight beeline to Hermosa.
through Compton.
Yeah. But whereas in, we went in 2017 as spectators, and we had some of the members at the gym, right? Like Dan and Greg. And I remember we went to Whole Foods, and Katrin was there shopping.
Oh,
and
Yeah.
it was, and the boys were just like, "Oh my god,
Yeah.
that was sick." That
That
was
It's
so
like you're
cool.
just like famous people.
Yeah, like right next to
CrossFit.
you buying turkey breast or
Yeah.
something. I don't know.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
So
they
then
could-
you go buy turkey breast.
Yeah, exactly. If you could recreate Madison just with an open top stadium, because
Yeah.
that was the best in LA.
And the California weather, like the
Yeah,
climate.
it was terrible when we were there, wasn't it? It
In Madison.
rained in Madison on the first day almost.
Well, the year we
the
went,
weather
it
was
was
pretty
beautiful for 10 days because we were there 10 days early. And then literally as the first event went, 3, 2, 1, go, it started raining.
Mm.
They had the run, swim.
last
run.
year?
No, 2017. I didn't go last year.
We went 2017.
Yeah, we were there
Yeah.
17. We didn't go.
We didn't
last
go
year.
to the outdoor event in the morning because it was raining. We
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Good introduction.
Mm.
Let's kick off with question number 1. And I think we'll start with Tash.
Mm-hmm. What my question was, right? So surely have a discussion about how this goes.
Tell the listeners what the question is. So I should say we prepared the question, but you just told everyone just before we started hit record. So yeah,
Yep.
you go.
So the question I had in mind was, tell me about a time or a situation that you had to learn the hard way.
Do you want to start, Sean, or do you want me to
Yeah,
start?
no, I can start. Well,
So ready.
yeah, and I haven't really had much adversity in my life, so it was actually quite hard to think of a story. I'm very blessed with my life, so I was thinking, shit, I really haven't been through some tough times. I had learned, but I did come up with one, and that was, the hard lesson I learned from this was to never lie in a job interview. So that was the
Oh, wow.
lesson that I learned from it, was do not lie in a job
I want to
interview.
hear this story.
So at the time I was working at the head office of Woolworths over at Norwest. They got a gym there. It's like a private gym for all the employees of Woolworths. And I was working there as a PT, and one of my friends was over in Dubai and said, oh, you potentially could get a job over here in Dubai. I can put you in touch with my boss. And I was like, yeah, okay, awesome. So on the Thursday, it was a Thursday afternoon, had this Skype interview, and they were talking to me on Skype, and I just wanted the job. I don't even know why. I had no idea anything about Dubai, but I just wanted the job because it was a cool experience. So then we're going through this. It was like a 2-hour-long interview. They were doing psych questions, and like it was full on. It was crazy.
2 hours on Skype.
It was 2 hours on Skype with this one lady, and she did all sorts of questions, like psych test questions, problem solving, obviously about fitness industry and my experience and stuff like that. It was full on. Anyway, I'll cut it short because I could talk about this for an hour.
No, do the long version.
All right. So I ended up getting the job, and I thought after the interview, I was like, I'll never hear from her again. And then she got in touch with me the next day, and she's like, hey, can you start next Monday? And I was like, oh my God.
Wait.
Like in Dubai?
Wait, was the lie that you lived in Dubai?
Sorry.
Was the lie that you were already in Dubai?
Oh, by the way.
Yeah, I'm just at a gym around the corner. Yeah. No, she knew I was in Sydney.
Okay.
She knew I was in Sydney. So then she goes, yeah, you've got the job. Can you start next Monday? And I was like, oh my God. So I told my boss, and he's like, go. Like the boss at the time, he's like, that's an awesome experience. Told my mum and dad, they're like, go for it. I was like, all right, I'm doing it. So anyway, moved over to Dubai. I remember crying on the plane, like literally in tears on the plane, because I was like, I just didn't know what I was in for. I had no idea.
Bit of overwhelming sensation.
I was 19 at the time. I had worked maybe for a year in the industry. I had no idea what I was doing. No idea. Nailed the interview, obviously, though. But I suppose the hard lesson that I learned from there was the job was to take a running group to train for the Dubai Marathon. And she said to me, have you done any running before? Or have you trained anyone for a running event? And I was like, running? Yeah, it's easy. Like, just
go.
Run. Like, stay on your toes. You know, like, I was like, I can do this. So she's like, have you got any experience there? And I was like, yeah, heaps of running. So I had done no running before that. I get over there, and then day one at work, they took me to my apartment. I settled in. I had it a couple of days before I started work. And then they're like, right, come down, meet the crew. So I come down, meet everyone that's working there. They're like, oh, this is the running group that you're going to be working with. And I was standing there. There would have been 30 people in the running group. I look around, all of them maybe mid-30s up to sort of 50, that age bracket, all expats that have moved there, high net worth, very, very wealthy, like the top 1 percentile. And it was either the actual businessmen or their wives or the husband or their son or whatever in this group. And I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? The Dubai Marathon was in 6 months' time, and I had to run this group to train them all to run the Dubai Marathon. And then she looked at me, she's like, have you got a bit of a plan to? And I was like, oh, fuck. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing here. So I said to the group, I was like, right, just so we all get to know each other, on the first day, we're just going to go out for a jog together, and we're just going to get to know each other. We ended up running 15 kilometers on the first day, which is the longest I had ever run, and I was battling on the run. My shins were hurting, my back was hurting, and all I wanted to get a gauge for is like where everyone was at. So I was like, oh, my name's Sean, and I'm David. I said, oh, have you done much running before? He's like, oh, I've run 15 marathons. I've done a couple of Ironmans. I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. The next lady, hey, how you doing? Oh, yeah, I just completed my first 2 marathons. It's going to be my 3rd one. I really want to break 4 hours. And I'm going, oh, God, they're all experienced runners. So I just winged it, and then went on like Google and just Googled 6-month running program for marathon, and ended up training through it. And then, believe it or not, this is a bit of a tangent, but that's how I found CrossFit. This was before I did CrossFit. So I was looking for ways to train my running group for a marathon, which I had never run a marathon, or I hadn't even run probably 10 kilometers before that day. And then I came across CrossFit Endurance. And I was like, because I was in
Googling.
When I was Googling stuff, I came across CrossFit Endurance, and I was living over in Dubai, and I was like, shit, I'm a PT and work in a gym. I feel more comfortable there. Maybe I can pull them in for some different kind of training, so I'm not just running with them all the time. And that's how I found CrossFit.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so I lived there for the next year, ended up running probably, I think as a group, we ended up running maybe 6 marathons around the Middle East, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Oman, Saudi, and then I can't remember.
Did you run all 6?
Yeah, we ran them all, and then we did.
You boosted up to ultra marathons.
Yeah,
from
and then we went up to ultra marathons. So we ended up doing a Dibba, which is in Oman. That's a race from sea level to, I think it was 3,000 feet elevation through the hills in Oman. But it was like all from a lie, like in the interview. Can you teach it? Can you teach a running group? I pictured 5 like overweight people that I could like teach to fun run easy. Wasn't the case. And sorry to keep talking, but
No, this is good.
That's awesome.
at the throughout the whole time, I didn't tell anyone. No one knew that I'd never run before, and like I didn't intentionally lie to them that I had run before, but I would never like
Just
not
didn't say
tell
anything.
them.
Yeah.
Oh, so what races have you done? Oh, back in Australia, there's plenty of races to pick from.
So, wow. First comment is
Yeah.
you just came out on the good end on all of this. It's like you discovered CrossFit, which is
Yeah,
now
there's
your
no
career.
real hard way.
Yeah. It was all like positive for you. What did you do? You know what you ran your first marathon in?
Yeah, we ran 3 hours 50. So
That's good.
we had paces in our group.
Mm.
I took the 3 hour 51 because I said to him, "Oh, look, you guys will have." So out of the 30, we had 4 or 5 paces that knew they could run certain times, and some of them were quite good. Some of them went down sort of like in the 2 hours, the high 2 hour marks and stuff like that. Yeah, like 250s and I was obviously never running that.
You were like, yeah, you guys are doing well.
This was another thing.
I'll take the guys behind.
Yeah, well, that's what I said. I said, hey, look, you guys, this is an important race for you. I'll take the guys that are struggling at the back and I'll be their paces.
That's crazy.
And I couldn't tell anyone at the time, but it was the first time I ever run a marathon. But like when I crossed the line, I was like, intrinsically, I was like pumped for myself. I was like,
do it.
I just
Yeah.
ran a marathon. But then
And
I
then
was
couldn't
just
move the
like,
next day.
No, I had done plenty of training.
Oh, okay.
But I
How was
had
your
to-
first training session though?
Brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal. The first 2 months of me running was excruciating. Like, so when you're a beginner runner, there's so many things you don't know, like socks, shoes, like just all
Nipples.
the, yeah, chafing. Do you mean nipples, underarms? You just don't know that stuff until you start running. And I didn't know any of that.
I did want to ask you, what was your biggest takeaway after you did your first one? Because that's exactly what you were saying. You don't know until you do it. You can guess, but after you do your first one, I feel like you'll learn a lot. What was a couple of takeaways that you had?
One really big takeaway that I had from running was I think people put it on too high of a pedestal. I actually think it's way more achievable than people think it is. Like when people run half marathons, they go, I could not imagine running double that distance. But the same people say that about running the 10K and one of
5K,
my big takeaways from it. And if you just go sit at any marathon finishing line and you watch the different types of people that cross that finish line, I think that was a big takeaway for me. It's like, oh, this is actually achievable for a lot of people. So that was a big takeaway from me. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good story to kick it off with.
I haven't
Yeah.
told that story in a long time, actually. I haven't told
This is
that.
how we're supposed to follow that one up. That's a great story.
I think when you ask the question, you'll probably go last. So I'll go.
Perfect.
I'll go next. You still got a few minutes to think about it. So mine is quite recent, and I'm a bit like you, Sean. I don't have too many episodes in my life that I feel like I've struggled too hard. But I had an episode quite recently that really annoyed me and was really frustrating, and I just can't believe that it's the way that it is, and it's very materialistic. So I was a slow adapter to the iPhone. I don't think I got my first one till the iPhone 4, and I've always been really good at keeping my equipment and my stuff
Very organized.
Very organized. Yeah, you live with me, so you
Yep,
probably
yep,
notice.
Oh, we know.
Yeah, probably comes from doing photography and videography. Kind of, it's expensive equipment, so you're quite careful with it. Or maybe it comes from even before that. But anyway, so I've had a line of iPhones throughout since the iPhone 4, and I've never had any issues with them. They've always been like perfect condition, and I've either just sold them or just given them away after I'm done with them. And recently, I upgraded to the iPhone XS at 10X Max. And that was after a short stint with the Google Pixel, which I really enjoyed. And for the first time, I broke my screen. And I asked you, Sean, I was like, because I can't have a broken screen on my phone. It just does my head in. It feels like my life is in disorder. It just frustrates me so badly. And it was a tiny, like I grabbed my phone from our mantelpiece and it dropped on a stone tile and the screen cracked quite badly. And I asked Sean, I was like, oh, how much is it to, get a new screen? Because your phone is in a million pieces.
Oh my God.
So I figured you were the best person to ask.
It gives me heart palpitations just to see his phone.
It freaks me out.
My phone's fine.
It's got little disco balls.
I don't think the screen is even working. And what did you say? Like, how much is it to get a new screen on the Google Pixel?
$200.
$200.
That was my guess.
Yeah. I was like, dang, that is pretty expensive. But I do have, I can kind of put it as a business expense. I was like, all right, I'll bite the bullet and I'll get a new screen for $200. I go into Phone King at Warringah Mall and and I'm just come up to the guy behind the desk there and I'm like, oh, I've got the new iPhone XS Max. I just need a new screen. And he looks at me as if I've killed someone. He's like, are you serious? What have you done? I'm like, it's just a screen.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Don't
fine.
you get like 10 people a day?
Yeah.
Surely.
And he's like, his eyes were massive. And I'm like, wait a minute. How much is this going to cost me?
Oh my God.
And he's like, well, if you go to the Apple store, it's $12.99 to fix the screen.
$1,300. How much is the phone?
$1,300. The
Oh
phone
my
that,
God, I thought
wow.
you said $12.99. I was like, what?
Outrageous.
We're talking about a hard time in your life, not $13. How much is the phone? That's more than the phone, surely.
No, I think that the phones are so expensive
Yeah,
now,
they're
which
$2
is
grand or
frustrating me.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, mine's maxed out, so it's almost $2,500 for the phone. But if you have a lower spec, it's about $1,800. But then it's $1,300 just for the screen.
Half the
So
price of the phone.
I'm like, my jaw is on the floor. I'm like, what? $1,300 just for a new screen? He's like, yeah, but it's fine. Like we can. He's trying to save himself after that, and he's like, oh, we can do it for about $900, $1,000. I'm like, what the heck is going on? This is crazy. So to shorten the story a little bit, I end up just biting the bullet and getting it on my insurance, which is lucky. I had insurance through my videography, and they paid for it.
Oh, that's so good.
But I get the phone back, and he recommends to buy
Screen cover.
tapered glass screen
yeah,
cover.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, it probably sounds like a good idea. And that's $40.
Yeah.
Why isn't that just on the phone from beforehand? Like you pay $2,500 for a phone.
You may as well get a screen
Why don't
protector.
they reinforce it for an extra $40?
Straight off the
ludicrous.
bat.
Yeah, it's extra money.
It is insane. So this has really changed. Like now I've really changed my outlook on the phone, because I used to think I always need the best phone. It's kind of part of my job, which is it's not really. I'm just in my head pretending that it is.
Yeah.
And then from now on, I'm going cheaper phones. But this phone has literally cost me $3,500.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
When you put it like that, that is ridiculous.
It's insane.
It's an insane time we live in.
I had one
Yeah.
of those moments as well on my data plan. I was like, I spent like 3 gig in 1 month and I'm on 20 gig a month. I didn't even use
You
like a
used
quarter.
3 gig out of 20 gig.
Yeah.
And you pay for all that.
I pay for
Yeah.
the 20 gig.
I think we're going to come to a point now where the mobile phones are getting cheaper, because
has
this
to.
stuff
It has
is
to turn
insane.
over. Yeah.
And I don't even,
iPhones run
I'm
as like dominant course for a while though.
yeah.
It's funny how quickly they lose their value though, because if you were to try sell that phone, what would you get it for? Like if you went on
Well, it's
Marketplace, are they $1,000?
It's still,
Yeah, they're
still
still pretty up there.
expensive now because they haven't released a new one. But that's when the price starts to drop, is when the new models come out and
Yeah.
your model is no longer the newest one.
Yeah.
Then it halves real quick.
You got a $3,500 iPhone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've just put a goal on myself to get my screen time down to less than 2 hours a day. So I've got a really expensive phone that I don't want to use.
This is really learning the hard way.
That is very counterintuitive.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's
yeah.
like the same thing
So
when I saw
frustrating.
someone recently post that about ringtones. Like back in the day, you used to pay like $2.99 to have a ringtone. Now it's
Yeah.
like you never hear a phone ring. Everyone's on silent.
I miss that
when-
time.
I hate when
Yeah.
You never used buy ringtones?
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I miss
I
it.
used to
Yeah.
love
Oh,
like
you
on the
miss-
Are you-
Nokia.
and when you could
You'd
get a
search your
song.
favorite song.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Oh my.
I'll pay $5.99 for that one.
That was awesome. I hate when my phone rings.
Same. It's always on silent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine's same. So there's a gazillion functions on my phone that I never ever use.
So when you say cheaper phone, what are you going to get next?
I don't know. Maybe go back to the Google.
How long could you keep your iPhone 10?
Probably 3 years.
You reckon 3 years?
Yeah, it's a crazy good phone. It's faster. It's got a bigger processor or more powerful processor in it than my first laptop that I got. That probably the first 3, 4, 5 laptops. It's crazy.
Wow. You won't keep it 3 years though, hey?
Maybe. I don't know.
$1,000 a year. That's not bad.
Yeah, if you look at it, that's probably how I should look at it.
Yeah, maybe that eases the pain a little bit.
Yeah.
Only cost me $1,000 a year to have that. Does a lot for you.
I just calculated my car. That's what my car cost me a year. The cost of the car, not running
Your
costs.
car does more for you than your phone.
100%.
I would definitely pick a car over a phone.
Yeah.
All right, Tash, you got to answer your own question here.
Yep. So the only thing that I can actually really think of that I learnt the hard way is still 9 years in the making. So I'm still learning. But 9 years ago, I actually went on a trip of a lifetime. So one of my best friends was going to Europe for about 6 months, and I kind of just decided, how long are you 21 for? Or, you're still young, you get to travel. I'm going with you. So booked my flights to go with her. We're going from like Poland, did the whole Euro trip, got onto some like Kentucky's, busabouts, everything. Yeah, did it all. It was awesome. I was like a liability on that trip itself. I broke my back in Croatia, falling off a sailboat.
Yes.
Classic
Euro
Euro
actually
trip.
broke her back.
I did legitimately break my back. But I took care of it with just constant alcohol. So it was okay. It was the best way to just numb pain. Anyway, moral of the story. Mad trip of a lifetime. Learned so much from it, got so much from it. But the only way that I could go on this trip was I didn't have any savings. I'd never saved. I was always that typical youngster, 18-year-old who had like a part-time job, and whatever paycheck came in, it went straight out. Like food, I worked in clothing retail as well, and like it was like cook eyes. So like every time I got paid, I was buying more clothes.
You live paycheck to paycheck.
Exactly. Yeah. And in order to go on this trip, I ended up just applying to every single credit card I could think of and got about $28,000 in credit cards.
How long was the trip? It wasn't that long.
It was it was 6 months long, and I came back with $34,000 in debt.
I remember these.
That's mad.
Yeah.
You've got some good. Sorry to jump in. Tell a story about how you used to get the coins to pay for lunch. How you used to go searching for pounds and stuff.
Oh yeah, but this was there. So I had a time and to be fair, I got credit cards, and they were gone within my first 3 months.
You
as well.
had several.
Yeah, I got like 3. I think it was like 3 credit cards in total. And then we just traveled, and then I got to London. So I got to London, and my friend, she had like a full 2.5 month Kentucky of all over Europe booked. And I'm like, I can't afford that. Like at the time, I couldn't afford to pay for that. So I'm just going to set up shop in London for like 3 months, probably find like some job getting cash at a bar or something like that. And back then, they had just gotten stricter on all that. So no one was hiring someone who didn't have a visa. And I have a Polish passport but never renewed it. So I could have started working if my Polish passport was good.
Yeah.
But so no one was hiring. So luckily, I had a moment like where I broke down in London. I was just in my dorm in like a hostel just crying like, fuck, what the hell am I going to do for 3 months here? And then I couldn't afford to stay at this hostel either. So my sister put me up with one of her school friends, Nelly. She saved my life for that time. She was she was living there working as an interior designer. So she had a few friends who were off traveling, just like clients and friends who were traveling. So she went house sitting, and she gave me her bed in return. And her housemate gave me a bit of work to just do some like admin stuff on his computer. So I was getting a bit of money through that. But then eventually I left, and it was about London time. It was 3 months into my trip. I had another 3 months to go and more traveling. I had already maxed out these credit cards. Like I had no money left over. So I walked into the grocery store one day in Luton, and I ended up like getting all my groceries, getting all the shopping done. It was probably about 4 or 5 bags worth. And then I went to swipe my card, and it declined.
Oh no.
So then I started just like removing stuff. from the thing, and I was like, can you just remove this? Can you just remove this? And we tried it.
Oh, wow.
I walked out from like 5 shopping bags. I walked out with a loaf of bread, peanut butter and jam. And for a whole week, I ate breakfast, lunch and dinner, peanut butter jam sandwiches.
Nutritious and delicious.
Yes. Well, I wasn't complaining. It was the best.
It's funny that they were your last 3 items that you were not
Yeah.
willing to give
I
up.
was like, this is not going.
If I have to steal this, I'm stealing it.
Oh,
getting these
I think
three.
there was even a time where I declined and I just like said to him, I was like, I'll be back. And I never came back.
Oh,
I was just so upset. But then, and then it just like the whole calling the family just kicked in. And I was just constantly like, hey, mum,
you know
help me
what?
live.
I think that is a very, very, very common story. I think there's a lot of people that have done something incredibly similar.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
maybe not even a trip, but just something. And the issue with a credit card is like, if you were to go on a trip and you save up for 6 months, you get the reward at the end of the 6 months, which means you get to go on your trip. But with a credit card, you get the trip, you get all the satisfaction, and then you got to
come back.
and then you got to come back
to
and pay
reality.
it off.
Get a
So
slap
you,
in the
you
face.
feel like you're going
Yeah.
backwards because you've already had the pleasure of having the time away.
Yeah, and I still remember I was in Greece and we were about to board our ferry back to like mainland. And I'm just standing there on the wharf, just like, this is the best. And my phone rang and it's just like, this is, Anne from Westpac. I was just like, hey, just, do you have a spare moment? We just have a overdue payment. And I was like, I'm just hopping onto a ferry.
On the other side of the planet.
Just in Greece. And then just like hung up and I
Just
didn't
make
answer
sure
the
my
phone,
card
and then
still works in Greece, okay? Before we hang up.
I should have actually been, but I just looked at my statement and it looks like someone's gone crazy shopping overseas.
Yeah, can you delete all those, please?
So my question about this story, though, like I said, I think it is very, very common. And I did the same when I was 18, 19, traveled to Spain and like overdrew my credit card.
Yeah.
Not as bad as that, but still pretty bad, I thought. What are the lessons that you've learned? Because I think this is almost an epidemic in our generation, because so many of my friends did the same thing. Credit card, they get a credit limit and then it feels like it's their money.
Well, that's my problem. That's the one thing I've actually come to the realization of. So when I got back, I ended up getting full-time work, but enough, same thing. I just found like the minimum repayment requirements and then continued partying in Sydney. I was just like loving life. But then I honed in on it a little bit. It got pretty gnarly. Like when you start to realize that like this isn't going down, it's actually almost growing and this sucks. So, yeah, like I honestly didn't come to until I met Sean. And like my sister, like it's her job.
She's a financial planner.
Yeah. Yeah. So my sister is like the polar opposite to me.
Yeah.
She's just like, she's one of those people who has an account and like she might have $5,000 in that account, but like if that goes to that point, she's like, I'm poor. I have no money. Because that's like her in case fund. And I'm like, I don't have an in case fund.
No emergency fund.
No,
Apply
not at
for
all.
another credit card.
Yeah. So I did continue to kind of do that. Like I ended up just finding ways to like refinance, consolidate, and then just get another one and stuff like that. But it was only recently, like I'm still repaying all of that in some way, way less. But then other things have kind of come on board, like our trip 2 years ago to the States, which I screwed up, the same thing again. But the number one thing where I had my little like breakdown and cry about it all and realized that I physically can't comprehend that the bank's money has to be repaid.
What do you mean?
Like that's exactly what you said. Like when I get the money, I think it's just my money. My money for the spending, and it's just like I don't owe anyone. It's just like someone's just going, here, have fun.
Well, they make you feel like that though.
Yeah.
That is part of the marketing. It's not all your fault. And also it's crazy how they give you, let's say they give you a $5,000 limit on your credit card, and then 6 months, a year down the track, they're like, congrats, click this button, and now it's $10,000 limit. So they double it. But if you want to take the limit back down to $5,000, you actually have to go into the bank and apply to take the credit limit down.
Ask you. They're just like,
They
why
force
are
you
you
to keep
sure?
increasing.
Yeah. But one thing I really, really hate about this is how like, uneducated people are even from school. Like I don't know how it is now because obviously I have this big like period where I don't know what school education is like right now. I don't have kids going to school or anything. But I still look back. We must have been in this like transitional period where it went to like all automated online stuff, because I still remember being in class learning how to write checks.
Yeah.
I do not remember
and
one time in my life that I had to write a check for someone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like it just goes to show that even some of the books were already outdated. So
Yeah.
I don't know if they do any sort of good like saving schemes. I did just see online that the Barefoot Investor guy, I can't remember what his name is, the guy who wrote the Barefoot Investor, he's doing like massive seminars and trying to change the education system for kids as well.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest topics that we don't learn at school that is vital, is how to run your finances.
Yeah.
After that comes tax.
Mum and Dad just told me a funny story. This is only last week or so. We're talking to them about buying a house. And I said, what was the process when you went through it? Mum and Dad sort of laughed, and they said they went to one bank. They walked in. They said, we want to borrow $50,000. I'm making that up. It's an arbitrary number, but we want to borrow $50,000. And I said, what's it for? It's to buy a house. And they said, what do you earn? And they told them. They said, okay, here's your $50,000. And they said, like, I'm exaggerating, but they just went down the street to the next bank, and they're like, we've got a deposit for $50,000. We want to borrow $200 to buy a house. And they said, can you show us the deposit? And they're like, here's the deposit. And they're like, here's the rest of the money. So they borrowed their deposit from one bank, went to the other bank and showed them the money in their account, and they got their home loan approved. And that's how they bought their first house.
Beauty of a day where robots didn't skim your accounts.
We're talking, when did Mum and Dad move here? That would have been, that would have been late 70s, early 80s. Yeah.
I mean, that is kind of how the bubble burst in the States.
Oh, yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. Oh,
Well,
people just kind of over, right.
Yeah.
Lots of variables there, but that's exactly right. And once they have one, the responsible lending with banks is wild with credit cards.
Yeah.
Like, it's unbelievable what they'll lend someone that can't repay that, but they would not lend a home loan. Do you mean? Now to get an asset. Now to get a home loan that you're paying off an asset is incredibly hard. With the responsible lending for credit cards is a joke. Yeah. It's like you said, it's not all the people's faults that are doing it.
No, they're making it too easy.
Yeah. And it's fun.
And I'm
like spending money.
I 100% fell for it.
And
I
one
am
thing is
the target market.
And one thing as well is that, like you mentioned, if you only pay the minimum payments, I don't think people look at that. And luckily now you can, on most banks, I think on your internet banking, you can look at the down payment plan and what's happening year after year after year. If you're paying, let's say you've got 10 grand in credit card debt and you're paying the minimum payment every month, you will not get rid of that credit card debt within 20, 30 years. It takes forever.
Yeah.
Literally forever. And you look at the interest that you're paying on that is probably double. Like it's ludicrous.
Recurring interest is not something that people are savvy with.
Yeah.
Well, not a lot of people. Obviously, people understand it, but not everyone. Tends to be the people that are applying for multiple credit cards are the ones that don't fully understand the repercussions.
That is a bad sign.
Yeah.
Loans have been my lifesaver.
What else?
Loans have.
Oh,
because I consolidate them through loans. Usually they're lower percentage interest, like lower interest rate. And then to top that off, you can't just keep spending it. So it's been the best. You can't redraw. And every time they offer it, I'm like,
there's the lesson, kids.
Nope.
Get personal loans.
Get loans.
Can't spend it multiple times.
That is true though. That is kind of a good point.
And the repayment's the same per month. Like you can set a repayment per month, and
yeah.
Awesome.
All right. I think we've done the full round.
Yeah.
That's one question.
That's one question.
Jeez.
I think we're on the next one, which is going to be... wait, who asked the question?
Sean can ask his question.
Tashi asked hers first. Yep. Mine was that I didn't realize I had to answer myself.
Actually, let's finish with yours.
I
feel yours is more of a... Well, hopefully people will answer it... Well, we will answer it in a positive way, so that's a good one to end on.
Okay.
But I think that's a good one. Yeah, good one to finish on, and then I'll go with mine. So my question is, tell me about a time or a situation where you achieved something in your life that previously you didn't think you could achieve. So kind of what I'm looking for is like a paradigm change in your mindset where you thought, I can't do this. But then one day you ended up doing it. And that stuff usually takes a bit of time.
Am I going to go again?
Sure.
Okay. Yep. So my one was recently, which is good. when you asked this question, I was like, the first thing that popped to my mind was I ate a plant-based or vegan diet for over a year. And that was like a paradigm shift. Like if you're talking about a different mental state, huge meat eater, like your typical sort of Paleolithic back in the day, just lots and lots of meat and animal product, but always been an advocate for animal welfare and against cruelty and like factory farming and all of that. I was really against that. I always watch these documentaries that everyone rolls their eyes at, and like it brings tears to my eyes when I see these PETA things on. So I was
factory farming.
Yeah, just the worst, the absolute worst. And I had spoke to Tash about it for ages and ages and ages about like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to try it. Not for the fact that I was going to save all these animals' lives or anything like that, but it was just to like prove to myself that I could do it. That was the big thing. I was like, I really believe in it, and I just want to know that I can do it. So then one day we're sitting on the lounge, and I think Tash had the shits at me really. That she was like, just do it. Like,
stop talking about it.
Firstly, there was a movie that he really loved.
Yeah, which one was that?
I don't know what you're talking about.
It was one of the Netflix ones, and I said to you, I'm like, I don't want to watch anything that's kind of like just seeing them getting tortured. And you're like, no, you don't see that. It's fine. Like it's more of like a factual one. I remember like it kind of shows like a cartoon of a house, and then it shows like the flooding rate of
I'm not going to be able to remember what it is, but it was the impact that it has on the environment.
Yeah.
It was more so than like the animal cruelty side of it.
It was Leonardo DiCaprio's one though. Maybe it was. But anyway, I still remember there was animal cruelty in it, and like
got ya.
I was bawling my eyes out in shock. I look over at him; he's asleep.
That never
I
happens.
was just
to fall
like,
asleep
how
in a movie.
dare you make me watch this?
So when I woke up, I was like, I think I'm going to go vegan.
Epiphany.
Yeah, I'm going to bed. So that was definitely something that I never thought I could do. And that's the next day, after going vegan that night, the next day I got up and had a bite of a croissant, which had butter in it. And I was like, oh, fuck, I've stuffed it up already. And that was the biggest learning curve ever on how much animal product you consume. Even when you don't, even if you say to yourself, you consume animal product once or twice a day and you eat a general diet,
every meal,
not a chance. You are, every time you ingest some food, you're having some sort of animal
dairy
product. Yeah.
It's big.
So I ended up going 1 year, 3 days, and it was at regionals. We went out for lunch. Regionals last year? Yeah, regionals last year. At
it was
Homebush.
the only one at Homebush, yeah.
And we went and ordered these noodles from this place, and I said, look, I'm vegan. I don't put anything in it. Singapore noodles. Like, it's really simple sauce. And I got halfway through it and looked, and you know when they sprinkle egg through like special fried rice, like really small? Looked at Tash, I was like, fuck. I was like, I just ate egg. She was like, what?
It was actually really heartbreaking.
Yeah,
it was like knowing how well he had done for like 12 months, and we're just like,
and then instantly, it was over. It was that night. I went to a steakhouse and I got a chicken and steak combo.
Southern fried chicken.
Had cheese. The next morning I had bacon eggs. Like, it was all over.
He was so uncomfortable. I still remember when he finished eating the meal, he was like,
did you get stomach cramps?
Oh yeah, it was horrible. It was horrible. I remember biting into the chicken for the first time. So I hadn't eaten flesh for a year. Yeah. And you don't realize that nothing has the same texture as meat. Nothing. They try to replicate it, but they can't. And then when I first bit into chicken, the texture of the flesh on my teeth like almost made me regurgitate. Like, I was like, it was so sickening. Yeah. And then it hit my taste buds, and I was just like, this is the best thing ever. This is so good.
I think the biggest takeaway with that, though, is that almost everyone we talk to, when you discuss something new, it's like their knee-jerk reaction is, oh, I can't do that. And it doesn't have to be about diet. It could be any major change in their life. The knee-jerk reaction for everyone, me included, is like, oh, I can't do that. But I think we have tried, all of us, to not have that reaction straight off the bat, which I think is really healthy.
Yeah, and I'm big advocate for that. A really good example of what you were just saying is when you and I first started a slackline. And would set up this slackline in a park, which is quite childish, is what people look at it as. You know what I mean? That's a really childish activity. It's for kids. And then everyone that walked past, do you want to go? No.
Yeah.
No, I reckon less. 1 in 1,000 people go, yeah, I'll try that. I've never tried that.
Every single kid wants to try it.
Yeah, they come running to you. Can I try that? Because they haven't been.
And you ask the parents.
Yeah, nope. No, don't want to try it. But
and we should say as well, you can. I mean, we learned how to walk on the slack line, and you can help someone to walk on it without it being dangerous. Because I'm sure people listen now and it's like, oh, well, I don't want to break my leg, which is understandable. And I should say that my sister kind of broke her leg. I put her on the slack line.
You put her on and she broke her leg.
I was the only person, but
sorry.
It's very, very rare.
It's different when it's your family because they don't want to listen to you. That's my excuse anyway. But yeah, you can. Most people can try it, but they don't want to.
Yeah, that was. I sort of back myself in most things, and like I think I can do most things, even
at least once.
And I'll definitely have a go at it. But that was something that I didn't think I could do for that period of time. Maybe a week, I thought I could do it.
Yeah.
How did it make you feel during it?
There's phases to it. First 3 months was the best I've ever felt in my entire life. And I specifically remember saying, if I feel like this for the rest of my life, there is no way that I'd eat anything other than a plant-based diet. No way. Like, this is the best I've ever felt.
Would you say it felt lighter?
Yeah, everything. This is, I don't know how much science there is behind this, but I only can go off my own experience. One of the biggest improvements I had being a vegan for a year was my memory. And I have no idea why, but it was significantly different. And people noticed, like my close family and Tash and they noticed, and I noticed. I remembered childhood memories.
Also long-term memory, not short-term memory.
Long-term. And I could be down to, this is a very uneducated guess, like eating way more like micronutrients, like your vitamins and minerals and stuff like that. Yeah, like maybe I'm making that up, but that was something that I significantly found different was my memory. Yep. But anyway, felt awesome for 3 months, felt super normal for 3 months. And then I was deteriorated really bad. And that's probably a lack of knowledge on my behalf on like really following my properly. Macros and yeah.
Well, so, I did try. Like the best thing for me, it was a big learning curve for food.
Oh, it's incredible. If you want to learn about food, you know, restrict yourself for that.
Even like when
for understanding.
Yeah, even when Sean said that whole thing of like, you know, you think you don't eat much animal-based products.
Yeah.
Like, until you really decide to go vegan and break your food up, and then you're just like, oh shit, I can't. Like, you want to do a fritter, you can't add an egg.
Yeah.
You want to do pancakes, you can't add an egg. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Or like you have nut milks now, which is a great replacement. But like egg was a big one, especially when it comes to like baking and wanting to add like make things as a whole that's a little bit more nutrient dense and like higher calories. Because when it comes to plant-based diets, like you've really got to stay on top of your protein, which is really hard. And then to top that off, I think it was like taurine, like there's certain like branched chain essential amino acids that your body's generally just gets from animal flesh.
Yeah.
That's really hard to get.
It's hard to get a complete amino acid profile.
Exactly. Yeah.
We should preface this with that none of us are really experts on
vegan. Not at all. And I fully like experiencing.
I'm sure it's possible to do it a little bit better.
Yeah, experiencing Sean go through it for that 12 months. Anytime I hear someone talk about it, I'm like, go see a dietitian. If you want to be a vegan, you go get professional advice and a full meal plan, and you get that MyFitness app and you put it all in and you watch your macros. Like it's actually really, really hard.
And I felt you have this like crazy self-righteousness too.
He went full vegan on people.
Fuck. I was laughing at myself with how self-righteous I got. I remember seeing it.
Dummy Johnson still remembers this day at Newport where Sean was like, "Oh, you're gonna eat that chicken."
And I remember sitting at a table, having dinner with people, thinking to myself like, "I am so much better than them because they're eating like."
You've slaughtered a cow.
Yeah, how dare you? I'm so much better than you. And that was weird. And the longer I went, the stronger that feeling got. So like, you know how, your stereotypical vegans are like I get it. I was there. I was almost had like a sign fucking petitioning out it. Like my self-righteousness was through the roof.
Did you troll any hunters on social media?
Yeah, I should have. If I had a chance, I would do it again. I remember just looking at people in disgust. Bacon and eggs. Oh my God.
That's so good.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
That was a very good one.
Yeah. Who's going next? What was the question again?
Yeah.
Clearly, my short-term memory is in need of some
Yours is
vegan
something
diet.
you achieved that you couldn't, you didn't think
Yes,
you could
so
do.
I asked the question,
Yeah.
so you're up next.
Yeah. Well, this is a hard one because I feel like I have a lot of things I really want to achieve, but just haven't gotten to the stage of achieving them. No, that's a lie. So like my biggest one is probably CrossFit.
Yeah.
I still remember when like Sean and I first met, and I hated it. But he was still
you
at
hated
that
CrossFit.
Yeah, I hated it because I wasn't a fitness person. Like I actually got my little bouts like twice a year where I was like, yeah, fitness first, and then I'd get sick and never would go back again. But I met Sean, and Sean was in his like crux of CrossFit obsession. Like he was setting his alarm at midnight to actually check what that workout was for the day, like what the WOD was, and I just still remember just getting so angry with it, just find out tomorrow morning. But he used to
can't do that.
No, and then it got to that point as well where he was obviously getting competitive, so he would be at CrossFit for like 4-6 hours. It's so funny listening to me say this because I was the exact same for like 4 years. But he would just go training all day, and I would just be like, when am I even going to see you? Do you know what I mean? Like I'll just sit around waiting for his phone call. It was like, okay. And then he had a games day up in Gosford, I think.
Riot.
Good all right.
Yeah.
Oh,
and I remember
so
like
good.
Lily and Dean being like, oh, you know, he's taking it very seriously. Like it's going to be a big deal for him. And he was really nervous. So I was like, oh, I'll go up and surprise him. I drove up there, watched like 10 minutes of it. I sat at the pet store the whole time. I just went over to the next door.
pet store.
Yeah. And just played with pets all day. I was just like, this is bullshit. What are these people doing? I thought it was so stupid. And then eventually I took the plunge to try CrossFit to actually get Sean's attention back. So we broke up for that time that I was in Europe. And when I came back, I wanted to get his attention again. So I was like, he was obsessed with CrossFit. I'll do CrossFit. Like, I'll have something to talk to him about. So I remember, like, Nina and I tried it out. We went to CrossFit Active together. And typical, straight away, we sent an email. We don't want to get bulky. You know, we don't want to gain muscle. We don't want to look manly. And then Starry emailed us back, like, with an article, like, just read this. And, like, I'm sure they're just, like, sitting there, fuck. But I think it took probably about 3 weeks. And then we went from 3 times a week to 5 times a week. And then we were going 6 days a week. Like, we were going every single day, just pushing ourselves. You'd read people's scores from the morning, so you want to go that bit more. And then that's probably where it all drove from there, I think.
Well, what were you saying though? What did you achieve that you didn't think you could?
Well, even just starting that, like, like I was never into fitness.
Oh, wow. I thought you were going to lead that into you making regionals and not thinking.
Well, that's where it led to. That's what I meant. Like, it's thinking back to the person I was when I first started CrossFit, and the things Nina and I were saying to ourselves, which was like, we don't want to get bulky. We're not going to compete in this. This is just a leisurely thing that we're going to do 2-3 times a week to accompany our running, because we were doing runs back then, like 10, 14K. And it just upgraded to the point that we were like, no, we won't go for a run, let's go to CrossFit. And it's like 5-6 days. And then I remember Sean and I got back together, and then I said to Sean, I'm like, oh, like, I'd love to get a little bit more coaching and stuff. And I remember Sean just saying to me, he goes, just tell the coaches you want to compete and they'll pay more attention to you. And I was like, sweet, that's a little cool tactic. And I think it was the day I walked in and turned to Chad and I was like, I really want to start competing. Like, help me out. I think that was it. That was like the flip of the switch, and that, like, I did it to myself. Do you know what I mean? Like, and then I was just pushing heavier in the weights, pushing faster in the runs. Level 2 opened up. I refused to go. I was too scared. I was like, I'm not ready for this. And then eventually moved into level 2. And next thing I know, I'm competing at my first regionals in the 3rd team with Active. The year after that, I qualified to the games. And then I came back and I'm like, I want to go individual. Had a collapse year, which was a tough year.
Oh God, that was the worst.
That was a pretty hard year. Just like spending a full training year just convincing yourself you're capable of making as an individual, and you do worse. Like, it's a horrible feeling. And then I came back, and again, just tenfold better person. Everything I learned, I was just coming to training for myself, you know, just push, like, walk, almost like what Ben Bergeron, him, whatever, he always kind of does the whole thing of, like, when your session ends, you know, like, don't think about other people. Did you do well enough? Like, are you happy with yourself? And then I just did that for a whole year. And if I didn't feel good, I didn't train. If I felt good, I trained. And then I went into the open just like, what happens, like just do this for your team, and made it. It was the best feeling ever.
Yeah, I was mad. I remember that.
Fuck,
I remember we went to coffee when they were going to post like the final scores of the day and where everyone kind of placed. And I went to coffee with Jules and Maddie and stuff, and they were talking to me like, how do you feel about it? I'm like, well, I'm pretty confident, but I was sitting on the cusp, like I was sitting in like 30th or something. And then Sean must have texted Maddie, and then Maddie just goes, you got to go back to the office. And I was like, oh, why? So I ran over, and I was just sitting there with Sean. I broke down crying when I saw my name in 30th. It was the best.
That was so emotional,
Yeah.
hey? That was 2 years of
in the making.
yeah, like heartache.
Yeah.
We haven't reminisced on that ever, I don't think. Like you sort of once it was
Happened
over,
so
we just,
quickly.
you just move on to the next
Yeah.
thing. Like it's rare to sit down and talk about all
Yeah.
that. Like that year that you missed out, that was the worst.
I still remember when like the workout, it was 16.2. It was the total bar double under clean ascending ladder or descending ladder. I think it came back this year.
It went heavier.
Yeah, it went heavier, less
Bars,
reps.
yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, this is my jam. I've got this in the bag. And then I did that workout 3 times, and I think it was 4 times, and 2 were in the same day. I did it.
On the last day.
On the last day, I had like 2 hours to post my score, did it in the morning, collapsed crying that I wasn't going to make the time cut off. And then
Which you would have.
I would have,
Remember?
yeah, but I fully doubted myself. I had a little quick massage from the physio, 3, 2, 1, we went again. Didn't make it, shit a score. But I still remember Ari,
crazy.
one of our members, coming in to give me a massage, and I was bawling my eyes out. The whole 60 minutes she was massaging me. I was like,
That's not awkward at all.
Yeah.
oh, she was so awkward. She even remembers it as well. She was just like,
Oh.
are you okay?
Wow.
That
It
was
is-
incredible.
Yeah.
That was
But making it was the best feeling. I wish it upon everyone who wants to make it and competing in CrossFit. It's the best feeling ever.
But something you did that is different to a lot of, sorry, I shouldn't say a lot, to some people, is that you went to regionals and you enjoyed it.
I loved
I think
it.
a lot of people put themselves through all that stress and they end up going to regionals. Well, not anymore because there's not any regionals anymore,
Yeah.
but sanctionals. And then they don't enjoy that experience.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
I think it's
to
putting
me.
pressure on themselves, really. Like the beauty of that, I guess, it is you put pressure on yourself even through the training year that it becomes a chore training.
yeah, and I think like you were so self-aware that you knew that regionals was that, like there wasn't anything
was the end
past
point,
that. Like
yeah.
regionals was Tash's gold medal. If she got to go on the regionals floor, I'm
As in
speaking for you,
individual.
correct me if I'm
yeah.
wrong, but like if she got to walk out on the regionals floor, that was her gold medal. That is her best achievement she could possibly do. Where she placed in there was irrelevant.
Yeah.
Like,
I didn't
we
care if I
never
came
spoke
third. If
about
I don't,
that.
I don't care if I qualified 30th, came 30th. Like
Like she's running out doing the wave
Yeah,
for the crowd.
I was having a
Natasha
ball.
Kazmierczak
Yeah.
in 30th, and she's like, "Fucking yeah!"
I still remember I finished the muscle ups and went over to the dumbbell, and every like transition I was like,
She was waving at everyone.
Yeah, I've got a lot of footage of that waving.
Just Tash, do the workout.
yeah, they're like,
Stop
pay
waving.
attention.
It might have gone into your favor because you needed. I think it was a workout where you could probably needed a little bit of rest in between. So
Yeah, just wave.
yeah, just don't stress.
That was incredible.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
That's probably the biggest thing I've achieved, I reckon,
Yeah.
for myself that I didn't think was possible. From that 2016 experience, I didn't think it was possible, but I just took another tactic,
Yeah.
took a different road, and then it paid off. But
How different a year can be. Hey,
oh, it's crazy.
very different.
Wild.
Quick question. Going back on that story, where did you that switch flip where you were like, I think I want to compete? Like, what changed? Because you went from not liking CrossFit at all,
Yeah.
just going to the pet store instead, and then some months later, you're like, well, I want to compete as well.
I think the switch flipped when Active released their level 2 program, and like the competitive side of people kind of started to come out, and they're like, yeah, I want to do this. I want to go more. I didn't actually do that. Like I remember Nina went straight for it. She put her name in and she's like, yeah, like the only way I'm going to keep progressing and getting better is learning the hard stuff. And I was just like, no, like I'm not ready yet. But generally, like there's something about CrossFit that if you're competitive by nature, and I'm pretty competitive by nature. I'm a sore loser too. Like I will bawl my eyes out if I come second or something. But
So
they used to,
annoying.
yeah, it's really bad playing cards with him. But So I still remember it was like still back in the day where they used to write people's names and scores up. And I was an afternoon evening trainer, so I saw the mornings. And I used to remember it was Poppy, one of the girls, like great girl I was friends with at Active. But I used to just see her name and her score, and I was just like, beat me by 5 minutes. Like I'm gonna come back in tomorrow and beat you. And I just kept chasing members. Do you know what I mean? Like you just start chasing people in general, like people you're kind of at the same level at, and that just starts making you better anyway.
Yeah.
And then when I saw Nina kind of loving level 2, and I was watching them mad like click crew, like they just had like just this like great gods. I decided to try it out myself, and that was it. As soon as you're in there, it's just a different vibe, different atmosphere. You have to go fast. You have to go harder.
Get caught up in it.
Yeah.
Wow. Imagine the circle of influence when we like rewind the clock back to then. Like the people that were at CrossFit Active at that time.
Yeah, you had Nick Hahn, Jazzy Beath, Courtney Fitzharris,
Alethea
Boone.
Yeah. Yeah, Chado. He was going to he was like
Starry,
he was a boss
Patty.
of the game. Starry, Patty, and regionals was huge.
Still the strongest gym. That time period, Active, stronger gym by far.
It was the best experience, and they were the best coaches too.
Yeah.
Like they were awesome to learn under. So
Dean Cousins,
yeah,
he was there.
And
Sean's brother,
Dan Lewis, the OGs.
Shout out Dean Cousins.
But yeah, so I think it was just probably like exactly what Sean said. I think it was just a time, and it was just the hype of CrossFit was getting bigger here in Australia, and it was just the best time to be in it. And then like next thing they were just like, oh, we want to qualify 3 teams, and they're like Tash, Kaz, Nina, Kaz, and I'm like,
I'm in.
all right.
You're going to regionals.
Yeah.
Good old times. Yeah.
It's you, isn't it?
My turn.
You got to answer your own question.
Yeah. What's the question? Oh yeah, something that's changed. So for me, I've got to say my work right now, because I never thought that I was going to work with video or even with a camera, really. It's always been a hobby since I was 12, 13. Like I used to skateboard, and then I got a minor ankle injury. And I wasn't that good anyway, so the injury was a good excuse. And I bought a camera, a Canon EOS 5, and I took photos, and I was useless. But I loved it. I just loved shooting, and I was useless for ages. And it was terrible being bad back then because it wasn't digital. So you'd take 24 or 36 photos. That's how many was on a roll. And I had no idea what I was doing. Either came up dark or blurry. And all my friends had skated that did these tricks. They were like, what is going on? But you learn a little bit as you go. And then I ended up getting a couple of things published, but not much. And I actually ended up doing both the writing and the stills for some magazines, some tiny magazines in Norway. Oh. And I thought I was going to be better at the writing part, because for some reason that worked out. I think I was just lucky, but it came out good, the written words in Norwegian. And then I was like, all right, let's just jump straight in. And I decided to get a degree in photography. I figured if I can't learn this at uni, I'll never learn it anyway. Surely they're gonna be able to teach me what I'm doing wrong. And then as I progressed through uni, that's also why I moved to Australia, because in Norway at the time there was only one uni that did photography, and it was very, very difficult to get in. You really couldn't get in on your first try. You had to do something outside of just your grades. So I said, well, I love summer, and in Brisbane there was a decent uni, or at least that's what I thought from my research. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to go down there and study. So I did my degree there, and that was awesome. It was such a good learning curve, but I still didn't really, it kind of felt like a hobby even throughout uni. And I had a mixed amount of grades, I think, because my personality and because I put in the work, like I worked hard, but my results weren't always that good. I still got decent grades, and I finished, and I was still on this road where I was like, I got to get better. Like I watch everyone else's work, and I'm like, I'm so far behind the 8 ball. And after uni in Brisbane, I figured I've got to go to London or to New York, because they're the biggest cities for photography. And I had some Norwegian friends in London, so I moved there for a year, and I applied for a gazillion jobs and ended up getting actually quite a good job. but more as a studio manager and not a photographer. And in London, if you want to make it, you're working for free for a long time.
Yeah.
So I would work Monday till Friday at the studio. And I loved it. It was long days, but I didn't really learn that much from it just because we were so busy. The photographer, Alan, he was awesome, really helpful, but you're just there like hammering away. And I was first in the studio and last leaving. And then on the weekends, I would try to do one day where I did some work for me, but it's not paid. And you end up shooting and it's semi-commercial. You're trying to get it published, but the quality wasn't very good. So I was like, it's no good. Like maybe I'm not meant to do this. And I was like, well, I love summer and this photography stuff isn't really working out. I'll just move back to Australia. I can just live on the beach. And that's basically what I did. I ended up moving back to Sydney and got out of photography. I sold all my gear in London. I think all my gear. I might have kept one camera, but I had a fair amount of equipment from studying. I had a Hasselblad, which is the Rolls Royce of cameras, especially back then before digital. And I still regret a little bit that I sold it.
To hold on to it as like a collector's item type of thing now.
It's a mad camera. It's the first camera that went to the moon. It's what they shot the moon with. And the story goes that they brought, I think 1 or maybe 2 cameras up there. But because they're so specific with the weight and everything, they left the cameras on the moon and only took the film back.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the story that Hasselblad sells. It's a Swedish brand. But anyway, that camera is long gone.
So how did you get into videography then?
Well, I did a little bit on the side, but just for fun. I thought that I was going to be a photographer to shoot stills. I don't know why. Looking back now, I should have done video from the get-go, but I didn't realize that at the time. And I think that's one of the big lessons is that it takes a long time before you ultimately realize what you want to do. Because I didn't really know. You think you know, but then it changes. And like I said, I moved to Sydney and I ended up running the beach volleyball school in Manly. And that was a life. That was way too good. So I forgot all about cameras and anything surrounding that. And that's, I guess, how I ended up just getting into PTing and training and, weird right off the path of having anything to do with the camera, really. And then some reason it slowly came back and I did more and more video, but not photography. And the main reason was because I could add music to the video. So when I feel like that's a little bit of a cheat, even if the stuff that you shoot doesn't look that good, but you put music on there, it's like, oh, this looks mad.
Yeah.
It's so
Adds like
true.
energy. Yeah.
So true.
Yeah. And I think my style and my taste with music matched what I was filming. So that I had that little bit of intuition around that. And then it also happened at, I think, the perfect time, which is crazy to look back at now because digital came in, everything got way cheaper. I had an Apple Mac and it had iMovie on it. And then, with a digital camera, even though it wasn't great, and a Mac that could edit, it was perfect.
Yeah.
It was such a good match. And then I just ended up doing that more and more and more and more just for fun. I made not even short movies, but just like short clips from a fun weekend away or going surfing and really just for my friends and for
Where did you used to put them?
just on Facebook.
YouTube? Oh, on
Yeah,
Facebook.
Facebook.
Okay. Well, like upload
Yeah.
it straight to Facebook?
I also still think
I don't remember.
uploaded straight to Facebook, and I think
So that'd still be around.
yeah,
those
and
videos?
and even on
If you go
YouTube,
back that
YouTube
far.
was pretty early too.
Yeah.
What's your earliest video?
I think. Well, I might get this wrong because I don't know when YouTube started, but I'm thinking like 2007, 2008.
You got to go look.
I do it every now and then.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
How many views?
I still have them. Not many. Actually, I think I did one of Manly Beach where of the beach volleyball scene. I mean, it wasn't really. It was just people playing, but I think that has a couple of thousand maybe. Just because back then there wasn't many videos on YouTube at all.
Yeah,
So if
yeah.
someone
So if
went
you
on
were
YouTube,
ahead of the game, like it was pretty big to watch it too.
yeah, I mean, in a sense that I just started a channel there,
Yeah.
or not even a channel, just registered really,
Yeah.
and then put a few videos out. It wasn't much, but yeah, and then that slowly escalated more and more. But then the last few years, it's turned into full-time work.
Yeah.
And
It's actually been pretty cool. Once you said that, it's
Yeah.
been cool to watch, hey? Like, even thinking when you came back here and moved in with us in, like, for those few weeks in,
Yeah.
like, the granny
I
flat.
didn't even do it full-time then.
No.
Yeah.
And then to watch it all progress even, like, I was actually thinking about this the other day and I was just like, holy crap, it's crazy how much you,
I
like,
imagine
It's nuts.
it'd be
Content
very
work you're
hard to get
doing.
a full-time gig as a creative
videographer.
anyway.
Well, it
now,
gets
actually?
easier now because there's such a big demand of content, but it's still not easy. It's few people that get it. And I mean, so I work almost full time for True Protein. I work for them 4 days a week, and I do make a lot of their video content. And we have a monthly meeting with our manager, Michelle, and I tell her every meeting, I'm like, I'm crazy lucky. I'm sure there's a ton of people, maybe not a ton, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that would love to have my role.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Which is like, it's easy to forget when you're there day to day and just do work. But when you sit back and think about it, it's incredible.
You're doing what you love, yeah.
It's so good having you around when you film stuff. Oh,
I
it's the
know.
best.
So good.
Especially with like how much I forget in my life. And then you go back and watch an old video, like when we...
Watch Little House.
When you went
oh,
through, yeah.
watching the old house.
Yeah.
You capture that stuff. It's incredible. It's so good.
You know what's going to be a terrible one?
What's that?
When Sasha passes away.
Oh,
I
that
don't
can't
wanna talk
even.
about
Yeah,
that
It's going to be awful.
Oh,
I've got so much video of it.
Oh
my
God.
God.
I don't want to. I don't even want to see that.
She's going to fully get an obituary and stuff.
Dog's famous.
Yeah.
She just perked her ears up. She's like, fucking what?
Oh, that's nah.
Yeah. I don't want to think about it, but I do know that.
That's going to be brutal.
Oh God.
Yeah. So last question,
My one.
Yep.
which is yours.
So I want to word it correctly. Tell me a time in your life or a story about someone, you don't have to say what it was, but maybe an instance that you've influenced someone in a positive or a negative way, or both potentially. That'd be quite tough.
This is the one I haven't had much time to think about.
Wow.
This is quite a hard one because it's...
Well, I intentionally made it tough,
Yeah.
thinking I'm not going to have to answer it.
Yeah, well, and you have to
And
answer
now I have
it,
to answer it as
and
well.
I feel like you've influenced a lot of people too.
Well, it's different as well because we come from the fitness industry.
Yeah, so too, I feel like it's...
maybe it doesn't have to be fitness industry related, but like the time that you've influenced someone.
Well, I think my one's actually most recent.
Maybe we don't use names
Okay, I won't use names.
unless they want
Well,
to.
it's positive, and like I don't think that they would be against it. And everyone at the gym knows that they're going through it, but it wasn't until recent when I finished everything up, and over the last like 18 months, I've worked on developing my nutrition program.
The Health Tribe.
Yep.
.com.
#thehealthtribe.com.au. Anyway.
Plug.
So I have 3 members at the gym that have kind of helped me through this whole learning curve of nutrition and kind of have been on the journey with me. It was on Sundays here at our house. I used to do chop club, so I had a few ladies at the gym who kind of supported me through that for 17 weeks, actually. It ran for a long time.
Explain what that was.
So Chop Club was this little idea I came up with where I noticed that like people want to eat healthy and they can, but the number one thing people fail with when it comes to eating healthy is just preparation. And like it's not even have to be lazy. Like you can be so quick and sufficient with preparation, but if it's all prepared and ready to go, it's so much more easier to eat that healthier choice. And so what I wanted to do was try something out that kind of went along with that. And what I wanted to do was just get their fridges stocked up for the week, not necessarily cooked and ready. They could go home and cook it. But I would give them their list of shopping and tell them what to bring. And then I'd give them recipe ideas for that week that we're going to use with all this shopping stuff. And then they'd bring it all here, and for an hour and a half, we'll just sit here, bit of music playing, chat, banter, and I'll tell them how to chop up their cabbage. You know, this week we're dicing the cucumber, or we're finally, slicing or whatever, and this is the recipes you're going to use them for. And they would go home and cook it all up and just, turn around and be like, oh my God, this was delicious. They'd love it. Come back the next week with the next shopping list, blah, blah. But it became hard to maintain. Like there was some Sundays where I wanted to just, be at home and chill and have some me time, and it was hard for them to come over every time. And
all the UFC was on.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it got hard to maintain as like a
It's difficult to work on Sundays.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to do permanently. Like it definitely could be something that could work as a Skype session, like if you created a Skype group and got each other on the phone at your own kitchen. But anyway, so those like three girls kind of stayed on and supported me through that. And as a bit of a gift for helping me out, I wanted to ask them to be the first trialers through my 8-week nutrition program. So I created this fully devised 8-week nutrition program that kind of goes through like a little bit of a, like more so like a detox phase, but it's more just detox from like typical stuff like highly refined processed foods, alcohol and coffee, etc. They just eat healthy, lean proteins and vegetables and good quality fresh produce. And then it progresses from there, and they're coming up to their 8th week now. So this is their final week. And just watching them, like I see them every day as well at training most of the time, but then like 2-3 days goes past where I don't see them. They come back in and I was like, oh my God, like you look amazing. Like fuck, I'm good.
I did that.
Yeah, no, but like you just watching them, and it was so nice for me personally, because I was like, they're actually doing it too. Do you know what I mean? Like you're seeing the results on them. They're coming in feeling amazing, but it wasn't like, you know, they would say that, I would feel that, but then I asked them for their testimonials. And I got all 3 testimonials kind of came within 20 minutes of each other, and I was crying at my laptop. Like I didn't say this to the girls really, but literally I had tears rolling down my eyes, and I was just like, I can't believe they were just saying how happy they were to have my support. And one of the girls even wrote in there, just generalized, she's just like, I'm so happy that I've found you in my life. Like you have changed everything about me versus who I was before. And when you just see something like that, it's just, it's really
heartwarming.
Yeah.
It's a saying that I forget who said it. My short-term memory is terrible, but something that I've really try to put weight on now is that the biggest purpose in life is to have a positive impact on others. And that is so true.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be that many, even because now we live in this time where you have to like get 1,000 likes or 10,000 views or whatever. It doesn't have to even be that many. If you have a positive impact on someone, it's the best thing.
It's probably the biggest benefit with our job too. Do you know what I mean? Like being trainers in a gym every day, day in and day out, and then you see that person get their first pull up, and you're sitting there like, yes, this is so good. Or when they get their first muscle up in the open and everything, it's such a good feeling day in and day out.
And even a wider angle, it's like when you see a coach within a gym helping someone else, and it's sort of like 2 tiers. You've got someone that's there that's working in in your business, and then you see them influencing someone else, and you have like this. It's almost like double.
Yeah, you've done what you could to help try and develop them as a coach.
Yeah, you
and
do
what
some
you
staff
could,
development, then they go on and you see them passing on some tips or even some technique work or something like that, and then like it comes flooding back. Yeah,
that's a great point, because that also makes me think about when I was a trainer, who influenced me to become a better trainer. Because I think I never really appreciated that as much as I should have. And for me, it was obviously Wall and Christian, and learning how to be a PT at Athletic. That had a massive impact on my life. But at the time, I definitely didn't appreciate it as much.
And I don't think you ever do appreciate it as much
in the moment.
It's very hard to in the moment. But
you're just stressing. It's like, is he squatting right? Knees out, knees out.
Yeah, feel like you're being watched. Yeah. But like we would all say it at the gym as well about Sean in particular, like us coaches. Like Kylie loves learning under Sean. Like you know, like and so does Maddie. Like and Mick. Like we've all like he's my mentor as well. Like you know, it was hard being the person training and him, you know, coaching you, but
that's different.
Yeah, that's
another bad year.
Yeah. But from like a, you know, coach to coach mentorship, like he's brilliant.
But then you see it, like my point was that you see that funnel down. Like now that you have, say for example, even on a micro level, you tell someone, like for example, a gymnastics tip, and then you tell them, and then you watch them go and help someone else do it. You go, oh shit, like that is true influence. Yeah. When it continues on and on and on.
Yeah, 100%.
And another point as well with this topic is that when you teach someone else something, and it could be about diet or CrossFit as we mentioned or anything, you learn it so much more yourself.
Oh yeah.
Teaching someone is almost the best way to learn.
Yep.
I had that experience a lot with CrossFit, because you're trying to teach someone how to do a double under or how to do butterfly pull-ups or whatever. And then when you go back and do it yourself, you realize, well, I really should listen to my own coaching tips as well. And you try to improve your coaching to get better at teaching it to someone else.
Yeah.
That improves you.
You want your movements to look good, and like, because they're going to watch and analyze. And
Well, you have to look at it at so many different angles as well. Like, say, let's take a snatch, for example. Say you teach 10 people how to snatch. There's 10 different variations. You're never going to get 2 people that snatch the same. And when you apply the same rules to all 10 people, it doesn't work. Like, you can't do that. So then you've got to come up with all these adjustments. And then when you go back and pick up the bar, you go, maybe he sat a little bit lower and that actually works here. Like, it works for me. And I think that's the beauty of being in a CrossFit environment as well. Is like, you get to teach so many different movement patterns to every walk of life. Everybody and like criticize it as much as you want, but the amount of time that you spend watching, like, and don't get me wrong, you're watching a lot of bad as well with the good, but you see it from every possible variation. Yeah. And then you can really take it back, intrinsically learn the movement pattern. Then you go, I get it now. I get it. You watch someone and you go, oh God. I get it. I get why we don't do that now.
I'm dreaming about the day when I can teach someone else any jiu-jitsu move. That's why I'm not good yet. It's because I'm not able to start teaching.
Like the other night when you turn the video back on and you're like, I did not do that in class.
Happens a lot. That's why these jiu-jitsu videos get so many views, because I'm watching every single one a million times. Yeah.
Well, it comes down to that for nutrition too. Do you know what I mean? Like, you got to practice what you preach too. Like, I'm just sitting here drinking my beer, but
special occasion.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, it's a matter of, even in that, like, it's teaching them all, like, go through this phase, reset your body, reboot, boost your metabolism. But then you got to be realistic. You're going to live. Do you know what I mean? And like, you're going to have nights where you're going to go out, you're going to have a little bit of a drink, but how to deal with it and stuff like that. And but yeah, like, talking about even influencing others from there, like, we bumped into that exact lady, one of our members, at dinner last night, and she was there with her partner, and he did it with her. So he obviously, because he lives at home with her, like, do you know what I mean? So he's going to kind of test it out with her, do the nutrition program. And he was raving on about it to me yesterday. He was just like, I've lost weight. We feel so good. We've just learned so many new techniques and just new habits. And I'm just like, that's exactly what I wanted.
That's so good.
Yeah. So it's exactly like when it trickles down, it's the best.
Yeah.
I think you're up, Kimbo.
My turn?
Yep.
Well, another recent story for me, it was kind of easy for me to answer this, and I'll get to talk a little bit about why I'm doing this podcast. Because one of my video clients, Matt, listened to my podcast a little bit, and he loves a lot of other podcasts as well. Not that he got super influenced by my podcast in particular, but he got influenced by me being proactive and doing it. Because it's funny when you have a podcast, everyone says that everyone does a podcast. I agree, but not everyone follows through with it again and again and again. And I think I have mentioned this before, but my goal is to get 30 episodes, and that has taken a very long time. But to do 1 or 2 episodes, that's very easy. There's thousands and thousands of podcasts on iTunes, but to follow through to at least to 30, or Joe Rogan has 1,300. That's super difficult, and it makes you have a long, hard look at yourself and realize that you need a reason behind it that's got nothing to do with number of downloads and numbers of listeners, because it really is irrelevant.
Or sponsors or
absolutely. I've got none of those. No sponsors, no listeners. But I talk to Matt fairly often on Facebook, just chatting, and I was like, he said that he was interested in doing it, and knowing him and his personality, I told him exactly what I've been telling myself, is that first of all, he definitely should do it because I think he'll love it. And secondly, the main reason to do it isn't to think about what whoever listens on the podcast think about the podcast. It's a learning curve, and for me, it's an experience. Having a conversation with someone in this style of, in this fashion, with this equipment and with this setting, it's so much more intimate than talking to someone without it.
Yeah.
Because today there's so many distractions. We're all like, half our attention is on our phone all the time. It's on the TV, or if you're at work, people think about other stuff. When you're in this podcast setting with the headphones, with the microphone, you know everything gets recorded. You have to think a little bit more about what you're saying. That conversation for me is the best type of conversation I've ever had. Like, it's so different.
Yeah.
Because none of us can think about what's on the phone.
Yeah.
Or you're really just thinking about what people are saying.
Yeah.
And I also get really annoyed on podcasts when people interrupt each other. So you don't interrupt. But when you think about, after you have this type of conversation, when you go back to a normal one, let's say at a pub where you have a beer and it's noise, people do that all the time. And you really often get a feeling that people don't actually listen to you. They're just thinking about what they're going to say next. Maybe just that happens to me.
No, that's true. We spoke about this before as well, and it was like you listen to learn or you listen to reply. Like that's the difference. And when in general conversation, it kills me when I speak to people that listen to reply. Like all they're listening on is like their little soundbite where they can grab it and then tell you their experience with that. I went over on a holiday. I've been there. It's like,
I'm 100% a listen to reply person.
I was just going to say that it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just how the society is now, how we have been kind of fixed into understanding how a conversation works. It's what everyone does. It's like you're always going to match someone. But when you're in this setting, it's so different.
It's completely different. You're so dialed in.
Oh, this is the most I've actually just stayed quiet and listened too. I'm usually one of those. We should do this every night. I'm usually one of those people who's just like, blah, 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 blah. I have another story to tell on top of that one.
But you're right. You can speak to someone for half an hour and you know that they have zero. If they reflected on that conversation, they couldn't tell you anything about what I've just said, for example. They're not listening. They're there to just fill the silence, and then as soon as they get their soundbite, they say their part. But yeah, listening to learn is it gets you a long way, especially in the fitness industry. If you listen to learn and you can remember like people's kids' names, you know what I mean, or what they did on the weekend, maybe when you see them on a Monday, and rather than just, oh yeah, my brother's got a kid. You know what I mean? Like you just, if you listen to learn, it gets you a long way.
You get to know people at a completely different level.
Yeah.
And a perfect example is the episode I did with Aaron, who's a beach volleyball player, and he ran the marathon through the ultra marathon through the Sahara Desert
with no training.
With basically no training.
The Sablos, wasn't it?
Yeah, Marathon de Sable. And I knew him quite well from before. We've had some big nights out in Manly and stuff like that. We get along really well. I hadn't seen him for a while, but doing a podcast with him for an hour and a bit, it's like I've never had that intimacy with him. And not only that, for me, we had listeners that knew Aaron, and they were like, I didn't really know you.
Yeah.
It's so crazy, and that's the beauty of the podcast format, and that is the number one reason why I do it.
Awesome. Lots of influence then. Lots of influence with the podcast. Might get up to 1,000 listens. What would be a number that you would just find absurd if someone listened? Like if you got 1,000, is that I know we literally just spoke about it not being about that. But what would be a crazy number?
Well, I just had this discussion with Aaron to reference back to the same episode. I think the YouTube video has 400 plus views, and the episode has on the Apple podcast app has a very similar number as well. So it's 800 people. To me, that's already absurd.
A huge number.
Because I said, imagine that amount of people in, let's say we recorded the podcast and we premiered it at a cinema, and you put 800 people in that cinema. That is ludicrous.
Yeah.
You'd be
That is
stoked.
ludicrous.
You'd be so good.
Imagine if we're doing this live in front of 800 people.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
I would
it's
be like
nuts.
this right
I
now.
probably would have worn different clothes.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have
Different
my blue light
colours
blockers on. Oh god,
The number is really completely irrelevant to me.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I think you've got to answer your own question.
Well, I didn't think I was going to have to answer this question, but I actually, this whole time I've been thinking of 2 stories that I can think of influence. One of them's relevant to sort of our circle of influence, and the other one's just a cool story. So can I tell 2?
Yeah.
Yes, of
Okay.
course.
So the first one was there's 2 people in our immediate circle of friends that own gyms. I'm not going to say their names, just maybe because I don't know if they want this to be a common story. But when I first opened my first gym in 2010, 11, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
Can't remember what year it was. 2011. When I opened it in 2011, I was quite young, and these other 2 guys were quite young as well. And I was in business for maybe 6 months. First 3 months, I didn't have a single member. I just sat in my gym and trained.
A lot.
And, and I was like waiting for someone to come down, and then this first lady came down. She's like, "Oh, what time are your classes?" I'm like, "Oh, what time do you usually train?" She's like, "Oh, around 3 o'clock." I was like, "We have a 3 o'clock class."
Who was it? Do you remember?
Leanne, her name was.
Oh, that's mad.
So business wasn't booming. Put it like that. First 3 months, I didn't have anyone, and then about the 6-month mark, they came to me and they're like, "Hey, we're thinking about starting our own gyms. Like, we really want to start our own gym, and like, how's your experience with it?" And
wow.
and my experience was nothing but positive. I had no members, but I was living my dream. Like, at the time, CrossFit was my entire life, and like that's who I was. So I got my own gym on the beaches that I got to train in every day. And by the 6-month mark, we had 30, 40 members. So there was classes.
growing,
Yeah. You know
Could
what I
pay
mean?
rent.
Yeah, exactly. Paid rent. I got to pay for my protein shakes, and you know what I mean? Like, happy days.
Supplied your career.
Yeah. I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. 6-month mark, I was so underqualified to give these guys any kind of influence. They're like, "Dude, we want to start our own gym." I'm like, "Great idea." You know, like, there is no downside. I'm like, you'd be stupid not to. This is a no-brainer. Rent a space, sign a 5-year lease. You know what I mean? Because then you're really locked in and you can really grow your business. And I think back now, I was 20, 21 maybe. I can't remember. Bad memory. But I was young and very inexperienced. I barely lodged my first BAS. I didn't know how to do the tax. I didn't know about, ongoing tax complications with my income and
The actual real deal to owning a business.
No idea. And these 2 guys had come to me because I had just taken the plunge and done it, and said, "Oh, what should we do?" And fuck, it's a no-brainer, man. Do it. Like, you will never regret it. One of them shut down.
Doesn't like you.
So this is the positive and negative. One of them is closed down. He went back to uni, and he's moved on to other things now, thankfully. And the other one's doing incredibly well. So it was about the same time I had the conversation. It was within a month. But I just, like, now when I think back at that, I was just so underqualified to give any sort of advice that's going to influence potentially their next 20, 30 years. Like one of them, who, like, his whole career is based around CrossFit, still has gyms, does multiple things within CrossFit now. And like, I just remember going, "Yeah, man, do it. It's going to be awesome." I had no idea.
So when you follow Sean's advice, you're either going to do really well or you're just going to drop it real quick. But that's good though.
Yeah, exactly. My strike rate.
Yeah.
50-50. It's on you.
Yeah.
So that was one that I thought
That's
of where
good.
I influenced someone that was a little bit different, because when I think back to it, I was telling these people to sign $50,000-$60,000 per annum leases for like 3 years and invest their savings into equipment, and like, they're taking huge risks, and they took my word as advice. So I took a lot of takeaways. I very rarely give advice where I don't feel qualified anymore. Like, if I have an experience where I really, and usually sort of preference it was, "Hey, this is my experience with how this went."
Yeah.
Like, maybe don't, but yeah. So that was.
I think
that
that
was an odd
story shows a lot of your character, though, that people ask you for advice, because they didn't ask you just because they needed to ask anyone. They had a trust in you, right?
Yeah.
one. Yeah,
You gotta
yeah.
That's
sorry to the guy that shut down.
But maybe it just wasn't for him. Like you can't really
Oh,
predict
no,
that.
Also,
Yeah.
this guy he shut down a quite successful gym and wanted to move in a different avenue in his career and his life, and he's not on the street begging for money. So I didn't have a huge negative impact on his life. And the other one, which is hard for me to believe, and the only reason I wanted to tell this one because it related to my first story. There's a guy that I trained over in Dubai in my running group, and he had never run before. His first name's David. He's quite famous, very, very wealthy, top 1 percentile in the world. So he was a geologist, and he did coal seam gas, so fracking. And he would, to give you some sort of idea of what this guy sort of net worth was, he would earn anywhere between 30 and 50 million US dollars a month. That was his income. Extremely, extremely wealthy.
Couldn't even comprehend that.
Yeah, and he's quite young. Like he's sort of early 50s, late 40s, early 50s, quite young. Anyway, he comes down to the running. He's quite overweight, wants to start running. Joins the running group when I was living in Dubai. And loves it. Just falls absolutely madly in love with it. You get that euphoria that if anyone's out there that's a runner, it's hard to replicate anywhere else. You get this euphoric feeling when you run. You just like... So...
Endorphins are... rampage.
Yeah, not every time you run, but sometimes you get it. And then, so he does his first fun run. We do a 5K run together, and he starts to make friends. 10 kilometers, starts losing weight. He's building up. Does a half marathon. I think we did maybe Saudi or I think we did one in Saudi, a half. And then he does his first full marathon. From doing the marathon, he decides, I'm going to quit my job. I'm not going to work anymore, and I'm going to travel the world running marathons.
Oh, mad.
And he had 3 kids at the time. Or like sort of in their teens, let's say between 10 and 20, somewhere in there. And he's like, I'm going to quit my job, and all I want to do is travel the world, running all the coolest marathons in the world. And
That's
I was
sick.
like, and then he said, Jasmine, do you think I should, like, is that something that people do? Or not asking me, should I do it? But he was like talking to me as
Do
a
I sound
sounding
ridiculous
board.
or something?
Yeah, as a sounding board.
Yeah.
And I was like, do not do that. I'm like, that is fucking so stupid. I'm like, you earn so much money, and I'm like, you have like the massive career outside of this. This is just a hobby. I'm like, because he didn't want to break any records. He just wanted to do it more and more and more. And then like I look back, and when I started, this was before I started my gym, but then I had this sort of the same thing. You just follow your passion, and he just found it later on in life.
What he wanted to do.
Yeah. Anyway, he quit his job, and he got offered an enormous amount of money, something that is very hard for general population to comprehend, to stay, because he was incredibly good at what he did within coal seam gas. And he quit his job. He lost his income completely. Obviously had enough savings to be okay. His great grandkids will probably still be quite wealthy. But yeah, that was from him joining the running group. So big influence there
from a coach who didn't really run.
from a running coach. Oh man, it's so ridiculous.
That's awesome.
It's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
And he still runs marathons. I've got him on Facebook still to this day. That was what year did I live
10
over
years
there?
ago,
Yeah,
11 years ago.
Yeah, that was, and it was pretty late in that. So I'd say 10 years ago, he quit his job, and he still travels the world now, running marathons for 10 years.
That's unreal.
Yeah.
Do you know if he's run the Chinese wall marathon?
No, I don't. I've seen a few. I've never seen that one.
Don't really follow what he does.
Well, yeah, I do. I just can see the marathons that he's run, but I've never seen him do the China.
That's the only one that'll bring me back to a marathon.
Oh, really? If you get that
Doing
chance.
the Chinese wall.
What? Yeah. I've done the Sydney one.
Yep.
And after it, I was like, I'll never again. But the Chinese wall one would be epic. But I've heard it's really physically hard on your body.
Yep.
You get really sore after it.
Why did you say you'd never do it again?
Because I was non-functional for a week.
Yeah, right.
I was so sore. But I didn't train. I didn't train the volume. I trained the pacing. So my pacing was good for a beginner. But
the recovery post.
I couldn't walk properly for 7 days. Not kidding.
Yeah.
I was in a state.
Yeah. It's very taxing.
Yeah, my knees never hurt. I'm very lucky with good knees, I think. Or just my body type. But my knees were aching for a week.
Were you under 4 hours?
Yeah, 3:45.
Yes, that's very different. To run your first marathon under 4 hours is very
it's
taxing.
Hurting.
Yeah, when I was saying before that, like how achievable it is.
Sean was holding the 5 hour mark.
Yeah.
Flag.
Like the 4.5 to 5 hour mark. I mean, that's achievable for a lot of people. To go 3:45 on your first one, you would have been hurting bad.
Yeah, but I know also like I was probably 67 kilos back then, so I was light, really light, and still wrecked me.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
it's tough. It's tough.
Well, guys, that is officially the longest episode that I've ever done.
Yay.
But I thought it was well
Wow.
worth it. It was really, that was super enjoyable. Even though I know you quite well, that was awesome.
This is our nightly discussions around dinner anyway.
Yeah,
We're gonna play cards after this.
yeah, she did. Yeah, I think I'm the champion. Just saying.
Yeah.
I wouldn't argue
Well,
that.
I think last night you got all your points then. So
Yeah,
or
but
the night
I
before.
taught you the game as well. I always finish with something that you want to plug or something that you exciting that you have coming up. So if there's anything you want to mention, now's the time.
Jeez.
Well, book your next holiday
Oh,
at
okay, yeah,
Ikigai
so-
in Japan in the coming season.
Yeah, Ikigai
was-
Lodge opens on the 15th of December. Second season. Incredible.
Why should someone go to Ikigai?
Oh, it is the best snow in Japan. We are 30 meters from the main lift. We've got heaps of restaurants
And
there.
it is
Really good for
the
kids.
best lodge. Just so homely.
Pretty much a brand new lodge.
Yes.
The
Definitely
snow
brand new.
Brand
is
18 meters of snow. we
maybe
got
the
last
best in
season.
the world.
It is.
Powder.
Yeah.
I heard Canadians saying it's the best in the world.
Norwegians have a lot of snow and they still want to go there.
Yep.
And I would argue that for a family, it's cheaper to go to Ikigai than to go to Threadbow.
100%.
No doubt. No doubt.
Yeah. 100%.
Agree.
How can people book?
IkigaiLodge.com. IKIGAI. It's a bit of a tricky one. IkigaiLodge.com.
Ikigai.
Or-
Ikigai.
Why did you pick that name?
I didn't pick it. It was Enrico and Benny Gorman. Enrico Massi and Benny Gorman. So friends of mine that are business partners in it. And it's the meaning to life. So if you look it up, there's a symbol and it's your passion. I can't remember them all off the top of my head, but what you pretty much all the
It's like, yeah.
overlapping.
It's kind of like personal, professional, like that type of thing.
Passion,
But then
yeah.
the very middle circle is like your Ikigai, where it all meets. That's
Where it
your
all
purpose.
overlaps.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a big passion project for us.
Your reason for being.
Yeah.
If you go on the website, you'll see the logo. It's a sick logo.
Yeah.
It's
Or
very good.
go to thehealthtribe.com.au for your ebook.
Yeah. Some yummy recipe cookbooks that will be coming up as well soon.
CrossFit Athletic, $65 2-week trial.
Oh, and let's not forget
Monavale, Brookvale,
this poor
City.
little bugger hasn't gotten a word at all. RooGrips.com.au.
Oh, RooGrips.com.
Yeah, you want some awesome kangaroo leather, good quality training grips for CrossFit?
That's why she's the marketing manager.
Yeah, I'm a sick marketing manager. I haven't even
Forgot all
spoken
about
about RooGrips.
We need to work on our plugs.
Well, listener, if you've gotten through all of this, then I definitely appreciate it. It's been a fun journey. This is episode 16.
Wow.
So still not at 30. And I'm definitely not calling myself a podcaster until I hit 30. But this is way too late, obviously, if you hit this mark. But the podcast is available on all major audio platforms and on YouTube. So if you want to see what it looks like at our home and see Sasha in the background.
And the entertainment unit in the background's for sale.
And you can go on YouTube and see the video version. All right, guys. Thanks.
Thank you, Kimbo.
Thanks, Kimbo.